Right, when you made the move, and obviously you went to MIBR, which if people need to know the timeline, MIBR was when they'd already done the move and they'd got Stewie in, and then later Tarek obviously came in, and that was around the time when you became the coach, was just after that. And this is the part of the story that maybe people aren't aware of, like the context behind it. Right, one of the things that made that move weird to me is, first of all, what fans might not know is, and this is one thing I want to know actually, is like why you think they asked you to join. And that might sound like a weird question, but I'll put it like this. First of all, Lurpus obviously was in their organization already, and he knows you, he's worked events with you, so I'm sure he was maybe part of recommending you or whatever. But the reason why I say why did they want you to join is, if people don't know, they had Zeus when they first became SK and won that major, and then he left, or maybe they didn't want him, who knows, whatever story. He went away, he went to Team Liquid, did all the rest of it. But basically, they won a lot of tournaments and had a lot of success with no coach at all. In fact, even this year, they had no coach, funnily enough. And so I got the sense from some of those players didn't want a coach, mate. Like, they saw a coach as like an impediment, as it were. Like, it's like, listen, we're going to play our game, we know what we're doing, maybe we don't even need to do all that nerd shit, you know, we play the game, we have our style. Like, did you actually get the sense that the players wanted you to join MIBR? Did they give you a good pitch in that regard? How did that move come about? It's kind of a weird one.
Yeah, I think they did. I'm good friends with Dad as well, now ex-manager of the team. So we would always like talk at events, like chill, you know, have some beers or something, and you know, we were talking about their team, and he would always ask me when they wanted to make those changes for international players, or we would discuss things and so on. And I was already slowly like getting jaded by the work, so we were kind of just brought it up like casually about like me coaching in general, and he said, oh, we might be looking for someone and for me the only two teams I would coach would be FaZe and MIBR at the time, simply because I didn't want to go to a team where the players don't know me at all. Like, the players for both teams know me to an extent, some more, some less, and I knew they trusted me enough and they would have like authority enough to get some stuff done, which I knew would be unpopular with the players themselves. So it just came down to, you know, when we were at E-League, the E-League tournament, and they were out, and we just discussed, and I talked to both teams at that tournament. I had a dinner with Robin, and I also came to MIBR's room when all the players were there, to their practice room. We just talked about it, and I said, listen, like, if I'm gonna come in, if you guys want me to come in, like, it's this and this, like some of the things that are going to be happening, like you need to agree to it now before we can move further and anything like that. And they said, yeah. I did get the feeling that a couple of players were just not interested in it at all. It's not like they didn't want me. It's that they necessarily didn't think they needed a coach, but I think some of the other players were really welcome to the change and getting some help as well, in a sense, you know. Like, after Zeus, they were still a Brazilian team, so who are they going to really, you know, I don't know if they really had someone they could pick up that for that level that they were at already, who could help them, you know. That's why they had Dad, who was more of a guy to calm them down and motivate them, maybe sometimes give them some energy. And I think they realized once they brought in the Americans, like Stewie especially at first, and they had to speak in English, that they needed some help, and that, you know, it could be something they could give a try. Why not, basically?
Right, when you joined that team, like I said, no one knew, like, did they want a coach? But people forget this. When you joined was when they were basically in a slump. That was where, like, they weren't even relevant to win the tournament. Like, you know, they'd make like quarterfinals maybe and just immediately go out, and any of the good teams basically would beat them. And in fact, the whole North American angle, like, they were kind of a laughingstock. People thought, like, this experiment's just failed. And so one of the weird things is, because basically, like, the sort of memes against MIBR had already hit peak value. So, for example, when you won that first tournament, that Zotac tournament, people were obviously joking, like, wow, you won a trophy or whatever, because obviously it was like a fucking joke tournament, you know, like, the teams there were all tier 2 or tier 3. One thing I think people forget, dude, is if you go back and look now at the tournaments you coached for MIBR, it wasn't very long. It was maybe only something like 3 months or something.
It was one season, yeah.
It basically gets progressively better and better and better. Like, you start out, like, you have the top 4 at the major. Now, I know people are going to go, who cares? Like, they got an easy bracket draw. It's like, mate, it's still hard to make top 4 at a major. Like, it doesn't matter who's in front of you. And plus, why is that team in front of you? Like, what Well, Big did really well in the Swiss system. Like, it's too easy to like dismiss things entirely. Then you had like you were in the Blast final, and then I remember at the end of the year the team actually hit like a nice peak. Like you were in that ECS tournament where people forget you beat Astralis. You were in the final, played Astralis again. You had like I think it was Pro League finals. You were in the semis. Like the actual results. Listen, you didn't get the big trophy, sure, but the actual time with MIBR, I feel like that's mad underrated. It was way more successful than people remember. They make it sound like all you did is win the Zorsat Cup and then come like 8th place at every tournament. How do you look back on that MIBR period, results-wise?
I think it was a good period. I think the problem was one weird thing happened. Like in that season, we were the team that was the closest to beating Astralis all the time. Like they were the team to beat. At the time, they were the best team in the world. But we were not the number 2 team in the world, right?
Sure.
Liquid was. That's clear and obvious. But every time they would play Astralis, the game would be more or less easy for Astralis. It wasn't really that close. And even we played them first at DreamHack Stockholm against Astralis, and we lost in a best of 3. One map went to overtime. That was kind of close. Second time was the finals in well, if we disregard the 16-0 at the major in a best of 1. The first time Astralis 16-0'd me on Dust 2. We played them in the grand final in Istanbul.
Yes.
And we should have won that. Like on the third map, it was Inferno.
It was
we
very
had
close.
the advantage, and we made some silly mistakes towards the end. And we lost the game. It was our game to lose, and we lost it. And I feel that was, I mean, not necessarily the turning point, but it could have been the turning point in a positive sense, where that would have given the guys, the confidence and everything, and we would have skyrocketed from that point on. Instead, we kind of stagnated. It took them a while. It took a while for them to get back to me whether we were gonna, extend our cooperation and stuff. So we wasted kind of a week where I could have been in LA working with the team, and the online games already started. So after that, there were a couple of on and off tournaments, but still, we were always playing close against Astralis. And at ECS, we finally managed to beat them in a best of 3 series, but we beat them in the groups and then lost another close game in the finals, unfortunately. So yeah, that was, but for me, I think it was, I can't really say successful period because we didn't win any big tournaments, and I still felt like we had the players to do it, even though role-wise didn't all make sense. With Tarek, Sui, and Fur, you have 3 aggressive players all on the same team, so that wasn't optimal. But yeah, I think we should have won maybe some of those blasts or possibly ECS. That would have been even better, but I don't think it was a failure by any means.
Sure. Well, if people don't know, one of the interesting things about that Astralis lineup, at least before they came this year and lost at the Blast and then all the online bullshit since then, one of the reasons why a lot of people basically, especially by the end, just said like this is probably the best team to ever play Counter-Strike, was it was so rare they ever lost a best of 3. Like they might lose a best of 1, they might have a close best of 3, but like very few teams ever actually beat them in a series. I mean, famously, Team Liquid didn't until 2019. Like they just never did, no matter how many times they played them. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, I remember someone once made a very interesting documentary. It was called Facing Ali. And because Muhammad Ali's obviously dead, and let's face it, his brain was wrecked and he couldn't talk anyway, what they did is they made the documentary from the perspective of all the fighters that he fought that they could find an interview. So the interesting thing about it is you get a sense of the guy that you never had if you're watching. Because if you're watching, you just watch what he's doing. Like, if you hear what they say, like what it was like to battle against him or how he would tactically play or what his punching strength is or work ethic, it gives you like a whole new appreciation for it. So since obviously in this MIBR team, like you said, you had many times you were close to beating them. You beat them in this one series, and then later with FaZe, you obviously matched up with them as well during their peak. What was like the peak Astralis? Like, what was it like to be in a game against them, do you think?
Very difficult. I think the thing that makes Astralis so good is, especially on their CT side, their reactions are really fast, and you have this feeling that they all just understand the game on a very high level individually, and then their reactions are super fast to what's going on, right? So you need to be equally fast on the T side, either into baiting them into some of these reactions or just, punishing their reactions and so on. If you try to just play a default step-by-step game, usually they're going to be one step ahead of you because that's what they understand the best. And fallen at some point when we were playing. You know, we were doing a lot of preparation and this and that, and then one game, maybe it was the Istanbul game that was super close, or the tournament the next time we played them, he was just like, listen, I figured it out. You know, like in his head, he figured out how he's supposed to call against them and the thing he's supposed to do, and you don't need to like do all this stuff before the game, right? Like I know what I want to do. You just have like some things prepared if we get stuck that we can call and that we can do. So we kind of changed it in that way, and then we started playing even better against them on the T side. And when it comes to their T side, it just, you know, really you have to like stop them initially for them to slow down the game a little bit, and then it's much easier to play. When they're playing from ahead, very difficult to play against. They take a lot more risks, and they're obviously, you know, the things they do are very well coordinated. And that's when individuals start having more freedom as well. Because against Astralis, it was always like, you know, they're going to play the optimal way. So sometimes you can use that against them, right? You know what their reaction is going to be. You know how they're going to stand. It's always like step by step, right? So if you can predict that, and then you can use it against them. And in 2020, I think, or towards the end of 2019, they did start to try to play a little bit in a different style, where it's a bit more YOLO, a bit more freedom for the individuals, just to make them less predictable than they were. But yeah, that's why I always, every analyst, you know, Chad, me, we love them as well on the desk, because they're playing the most fundamentally sound Counter-Strike, right? And that's what makes it so fun to watch when they play a FaZe or a Navi or MIBR than a team that's more loose and relying more on the individuals. You have this clash of styles sometimes, and it brings for an exciting game, you know, a lot of exciting moments and so on.